सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं कर्वावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः असतो मा सद्गमय तमसो मा ज्योतिर्गमय मृत्युर्मामृतंगमय ॐ शान्ति शान्ति शान्तिः ॐ पूर्णमदं पूर्णात् पूर्णमुदच्यते पूर्णस्य पूर्णमादाय पूर्णमेवावशिष्यते.
Krishnarpanamastu. Awesome. Very nice, Sunny. Very, very nice. Okay. So, we were supposed to do the test today. You remember we talked about chapter 3 and test, but we're going to postpone it to next week because not many kids can join today. They have a puja at somebody's house and all the kids are going to go there. So what we're going to do is we skipped one festival that came in the middle and we didn't cover that. So we're going to cover that today. Actually, 2 festivals that went and we did not cover. One was Ram Navmi. If you guys remember Ram Navmi, we missed that to talk about in the class, and then we missed Hanuman Jayanti. Those 2 festivals came and we missed that. So we're going to talk about Ram and Hanuman today. Okay, what is the significance of Ram and what is the significance of Hanuman? So let's start with Ram Navmi, right? So Ram Navmi is celebrated every year for birth of Ram, right? And it is the first the Indian calendar goes from Chaitra Mahina to when the Chaitra Mahina starts, that's where the Indian calendar starts, the Hindi calendar. And the 9th day of Chaitra month every year we celebrate Ram Navmi, and Ram Navmi is birth of Ram Bhagwan. And Navmi is 9th day, that's why we say Navmi, and Ram Bhagwan's birthday is it on there, so it says Ram Navmi. So first 8 days we celebrate for our the goddess. We celebrate all 8 days for goddess, and then 9th day we celebrate for Ram Navmi, right? So let's talk about a little bit about Ram Bhagwan and Ram Navmi. How many of you guys know Ram Bhagwan's story? How it goes? How many of you know? Sanay and Shaisha, do you know?
I think.
Have you seen Ramayana on the TV show?
Oh, yeah. Yeah, we watched Ramayana.
Ramayana you watch, right? What about you, Neil?
I never really saw it when I was a kid.
What is it?
I don't know.
Oh, you don't know about, okay. So,
Ramayana.
Have you watched Ramayana, Sanay?
Mm-hmm.
Ram and all that story of Ram Bhagwan? What was
the question?
Yeah, the question was, do you know about Ram Bhagwan?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, but anybody wants to summarize, like a little bit, whatever you guys know? Sanay, anything that you know that you remember?
Isn't he, so, there's like, he's like with, well, I know like simple stuff, like he had 4 other brothers, and he's like the ideal person, like he doesn't do anything that's like not good.
You know big stuff. This is not just a little stuff. This is the big stuff. That's the significance of Ram Bhagwan. So tell me, anybody from here, anything that you want to add, Saisha?
Well, it was, no, there's not really much. I don't really remember how it went.
Yeah, you were very little when you were watching Ramayana. I remember that when your mom told me. But, and you guys want to add anything?
Like
Huh?
Like Ramayana?
Yeah.
Okay, so basically, Ram Bhagwan, he started, when he was a kid, he went to ashram, and then he came back, but some rishi, I forgot which one, which
Vashisht.
yeah,
Vashisht.
Vashishta,
Mhm.
right, came and took him and Lakshman because he had to train them or something to help fight the demons that were disturbing their puja,
Mhm.
right? So he did that, and then they came back,
Mhm.
and then the KK
Mhm.
made Ram's dad.
Mhm.
What's his name again?
KK mantra, the
No,
sir-
was Ram's dad?
Dashrath.
Dashrath, yeah.
Mhm.
So he made Dashrath. She made Dashrath make Bharat, her son,
Mhm.
be the king,
Mhm.
and then Ram got exiled for 14 years.
Mhm.
And during the exile,
Mhm.
he Sita got kidnapped by Ravan,
Mhm.
and he made friends with Hanuman and everyone, and Hanuman became his devotee. And then they had to cross the lake to Sri Lanka,
Mhm.
and then he fought a war with Ravan,
Mhm.
and then he came back
Mhm.
and took back the kingdom again,
Mhm.
even though he didn't want to.
Mhm.
And he basically lived his life doing everything right.
Mhm.
And then I think when he died, he died with Lakshman because of his love for him or something like that.
Mhm.
Right? Yeah.
Okay. Good. Sean, anything to add on to it? Anything that he missed just a little?
Oh, I missed one thing.
Anything? Okay. You don't want to add anything? His 4 brothers' name. Do you remember that?
I said 3. You need to get
Oh, the other one.
That was the hardest one, and Sean
Starts
always
with an
used to
S.
ask me. I remember. Shatrugna.
Oh, yeah.
Anyway, okay, because Neil doesn't know a little bit, I will summarize it, and then I think Neil, you heard what Krish said, but I will just tell you a little bigger picture, right? So we know why Ram Navami is celebrated, because it's birth of Ram, God Ram, right? So we say God to Ram Bhagwan and Ram Bhagwan. Why do we say that? Let's talk about that too a little bit. Why is he God to all of us? Now, so what happened is Dashrath, who was, when these stories were made, like how we talk about what Arjun name means, right? What Duryodhan name significance is, what Yudhishthir's name significance is. So in those days when they put the name, there was a significance of their character. They talk about their character in their name. That's how important the name was, right? We already talked about that in Mahabharata. Here also the name matters a lot. So Dashrath, start from Dashrath, right? Dashrath. Dash means 10 in Hindi, right? 10 and Rath. Rath means what? Anybody can tell me? Rath means chariot. Rath means the chariot, right? So Dashrath, the person who has 10 chariot. Now, what does the name signifies here, right? You will say, what is it? 10 chariot? What does that mean? So 10 means the sense organ, and your organ of senses 5 that we know, and 5 organ of actions, right? So seeing, hearing, also walking, talking, that all comes into that. So 10 sense organ, like 5 sense organ, and 5 organ of actions. Those are 10 Rath. That's how it is signified. So anybody who control those 10 things, that's having the king of 10 chariots. That's what his name signifies. So what he was, his character was that he has a control on all his senses and all his actions that he was taking. That's why his name was Dashrath. So Dashrath, known to be a really wise king, right? And he had 3 queens. Name was Kaushalya, Sumitra, and Kekai, right? All these names signify something. If I start telling everybody's name, what they signify, this class will be 2-hour class. So we will only talk about people who is important, like main character in this story, and then we will move on. So they did not have any prince or princess in the, but though they have 3 queens and King Dashrath was there, but there was no baby. So they went to the sage and prayer for having a baby at the house, so that there is a prince and they can become a future king and stuff like that. So then with the blessing of God, they got 4 kids. Now Ram Navmi, remember that Ram Navmi is only not Ram Bhagwan was born. Ram Bhagwan was born, Lakshman was born, Bharat was born, and Shatrughna was born. All of them were born in the same day. There were 4 kids, right? And now what happens is Ram name, let's talk about name of significance of name Ram. R is the light, right? And Ma is inside me. So light inside you, which is, what is light inside you? The consciousness, the soul. So Ram name represent consciousness, right? Then Lakshman is Lakshmi. When we talk about Lakshmi, we talk about money, right? So money, what Lakshman means, the person who has wealth, who is king of wealth, right? That means Lakshman. Though he had money all his life, if you look at his name and his significance, he always was with King Ram all through the his life, and also in the forest, he was always there to, he got the pain before Ram can get any pain, right? So he was there. So what they say, that even if you have wealth or anything, but until you are not in Sharan means surrender to God Ram, your life is not worthwhile, right? So that's the representation of name Lakshman. Now there are other 2 brothers, Bharat and Shatrughna. Bharat is talk about the person with talent, skills. That's why the name Bharat represents. So he has a lot of talent. He had a lot of talent to become a king and stuff. And then Shatrughna is the one who can conquer everybody. No, Shatru means enemy, and Shatrughna means who can conquer the enemies. So there was no enemy for Shatrughna. So those were 4 brothers. They had all had their own powers, right? Now Ram Bhagwan, when he grew up, he got married to Sita, right? So then she was very beautiful, and she was a daughter of earth, right? She came out of earth, and then she was so when she married Ram Bhagwan, she came to Ayodhya. And then, as Krish told us a story about Kekai, Bharat's mom got into one of the servant of Kekai influenced her that, hey, when Ram become king, what is going to happen to you? You will be nothing, because your son will be nobody, right? So then she said that, why don't you go and ask Raja Dashrath that make my son Bharat the king, and send Ram to forest for 14 years. And then Kekai got got influenced by Mantra, who was the servant to Kekai, and she went to Raja Dashrath and said, okay, why don't you send Ram to forest? So first of all, he doesn't want him to interfere with her own kid Bharat when he become king. So then he said, and then second is, I want my son to become king. Now, if you look at that, then Ram Bhagwan, when Dashrath said no, but what happens is at that time, when it was the time when civilization was getting to be created, right? It was 7,000 to 10,000 years ago, the story was there. So civilization was in motion of creating. So you were creating the laws and the rules and everything, right? So the king was the first person who has to follow the laws and rules, and whatever he says, he has to make sure that he does it. That's why he can ask everybody else to do it, right? So when Dashrath promised Kekai that I will take care whatever you're gonna say, so when she said that send Ram Bhagwan to Ram to forest and make Bharat the king, he has to follow it, right? Because he promised, he has to keep his promise. So then he did do that. He asked Ram to leave and go to forest, and then he asked Bharat to become the king, right? Now what happened is then Sita said, oh, I will come with you too, and same as Lakshman says, I will come with you too. So the Ram, Lakshman and Sita, all three goes to the forest. Now in the meantime, Bharat was not there. So when Bharat gets home and he gets to hear that, oh my God, my beloved brother is sent to forest and my mom asked me to become a king, he got really upset because he was very much in love with his own brother, right? You know, he loved his brother too, and he wanted Ram to become the king. So he was very, very upset. He goes behind Ram and said, you know, please come back, don't stay there. My mom's mind, you know, I don't know what happened to her, but you come and become the king. But Ram said, no, I promised my dad, you know, as I was saying, that he kept his promises. He said, I promised my dad that I will go for 14 years and you gonna represent the kingdom. You're gonna, you know, rule the kingdom. So you have to do that what I promised to Dashrath. Now what happened is, in this scenario, Dashrath passes away and Bharat goes back to the kingdom to, you know, take care of the kingdom. But what Bharat does it, Bharat actually says that I will never sit on the throne. It's your throne, it's your kingdom, you will sit on the throne. And he takes his slippers and put his slippers, Ram Bhagwan's slipper, on the throne and said, I will also sleep and live as you gonna live in the forest. So he used to sleep on the floor. He never enjoyed any material world in the when he was ruling. He always thought that that throne was for Ram Bhagwan, and he's the only, you know, he's only the person who's gonna sit on this throne. So that shows the love of brother to brother there, right? Now what happened after that, this is the main thing I wanted to tell you also in the story. So then they go to the forest, and then they keep, you know, going to the they stayed very close to Ayodhya where they used to live, but a lot of people from Ayodhya used to come and visit Ram. And Ram said this was not the wish that I stay close to Ayodhya. It was like I cannot meet anybody. So then he thought we will go further south. So they kept walking in the jungle and they went further south. Then Ravan comes and sees Sita and said, hey, you know, why is this beautiful lady should be my wife, not this, it should not stay in this jungle. So when he saw, so what did he do to make sure that he can kidnap Sita? He becomes a deer, like a golden deer. And as soon as Sita sees that golden deer, she get really, she loved it, and she said, why don't you ask Ram to bring that deer home, because it was very beautiful. So Ram went behind the deer to get it. Now Lakshman was home, but Ram doesn't return for a long time. When he doesn't return for a long time, Sita and Lakshman get really worried about him and said, what should we do? So Sita says, you know, why don't you go and check on him? So Lakshman says, I cannot leave you alone, right? I have to protect you, and there are so many animals in this forest, and, you know, anybody can come, so I cannot go. But Sita says, no, you have to go and see what happened. So what Lakshman does it, Lakshman put a Lakshman Rekha. Now what is Rekha? Rekha means line. So he put a protection line in front of their hut, so that Sita is protected. No animal can come in, nobody can come in the house. That was a protection line for Sita. And then he goes to find Ram. Now what happened? Ravan comes to see that if he can, you know, take Sita away. So when he comes, and he comes in the dress of a beggar, a Brahmin beggar. And he comes and he said, I'm so hungry, I haven't eaten for so long. Can you give me some food? So Sita comes and Sita says, okay, I will give you some food. So she gets the food, and she tried to be inside that protection boundary and tried to give Ravan that food. But what happened is Ravan get to know that there is a protection boundary here. So he cannot come inside. So what he does, he stay away from that line and say, you have to come outside, so that I can take the food. If you don't come outside, I will not take the food. Now in this case, Sita did not had any choice other than going out and giving food to beggar because he was hungry. So beggar eats, she goes outside the line. As soon as she goes outside the line, the Ravan takes her and take her to Lanka, right? And he kidnaps her. Now, because his wife was missing, Ram become very sad, and then he tries to find Sita everywhere. So eventually he get to know that it was Ravan who took Sita away, and then he goes to Lanka, and he gets Hanuman become his friend in the way to Lanka. And then all these, Hanuman says, I have a whole army of monkey who can help you. And then they actually proceed with the war, and they do there is a big war that they had to do it. And then Ram comes and they win, and then they get the Sita back and come back to Ayodhya. And we celebrate Diwali when they come back to Ayodhya. All these festival of light, they do it when they come back to Ayodhya, and then he gets his kingdom back. So now with this story, I haven't tell you all the details about the story, but this is just a shortest way I can tell you the whole story of it. Now, couple characters in this, you heard about it. Ravan. Ravan has 10 faces, right? Ravan from Lanka had 10 faces. What does that mean? Do he physically had 10 faces? It was not, but why do he's known for 10 faces? You have seen when we burn Ravan on Dashera, they always make a statue with 10 faces. This 10 faces is again the same thing, the 5 senses and 5 organ of action. But what happens is, what is the difference between Dasharath and Ravan? Dasharath has Rath to control with the reins, right? Mind and everything. He was controlling it. For Ravan, all the 10 faces are looking outside, right? So the senses are looking outside for the enjoyment of life. So all the organ of senses and all the organ of action are looking outside the body to look for. So he is actually, his all 10 faces looking to the outside world, the objects of outside world that can make his happiness. So his happiness, he is looking outside, right? So that's what the representation of. So he is very materialistic because he is finding his happiness in the outside world object, right? And that's what his character is too in this. Like, he wants to get all the money from everywhere. He wants to, Sita, also he wants Sita for himself, and that's all thing that he wanted. He wanted the material enjoyment from other people. So that's what Ravan represents. Now in this whole story, it's been, it has all the significance for a lot of things, and couple things I will tell you very, which is standing out in the story. So if you look at that, Ravan was very materialistic. That's why he captured Sita. Now, if you look, Ram as a consciousness, right? Ram is consciousness. What is Sita? Sita is mind, right? How Sita is mind? Because what happens is, when Sita mind, right, works in conjunction with our, senses and everything, if we are not taking our mind to the outside world, it works very good. But as soon as the mind goes to the outside world, which was what? The golden deer, right? The golden deer represents the material, right? The materialistic. As soon as Sita got influenced by the material of outside object, what happened, right? He crossed the border of her own protection and got everybody in problem, right? Ram was in problem. Consequences was she was kidnapped and everything. So the representation of this story is, Ram is the consciousness, but what happened is, when your mind, right, which is Sita, man, which is Sita, mind, when it gets distracted by the outside world object, what happened? The consequences are always painful, right? So that's the whole representation of this story is. Now, if Sita would not have get influenced by the outside object, there was no fight or nothing, right? So now in this whole story, if you look at it, Ram Bhagwan's life, right? From not from the child, because when he was young, there is only 7 shloks written in the Ramayana about his younger, when he was a little boy. Only 5 shloka explains Ram in those Ramayana. But in Krishna Bhagwan, you can say there is like 47 chapters on Krishna Bhagwan when he was little. So not too much said about the Ram Bhagwan when he was a teenager or he was a little baby. But since he came back after his studies, if you look at his life, it's all disaster. How? Disaster, like he was made a prince of the whole Ayodhya, but then it was taken away, right? Then what happened? The disaster came again, that he was sent to the forest. He married Sita, and he has to take Sita also to the forest, who was really a queen in the palace, and she has to go to the forest. Then his wife was taken off from him, right? He lived in the forest for so long, his wife was taken out. Then he has to go and fight with people whom he did not wanted to fight with, right? So he fought. He came back home. He got his wife. He came back home. Then after, because of his kindness and how he did penance for 1 year, that he killed a bhakt of Shiv, right? Ravan was bhakt of Shivji. So he killed a bhakt of Bhagwan. So he did penance for 1 year. Then he came back and he started ruling the kingdom. And then, he had to let Sita go again back. While she was pregnant, she leaves and goes to the forest. He never sees her again, which he loved his wife so much. He went 3,000 kilometers away to find initially his wife, but then after he became king, he has to leave his wife and never saw her again. He got into a fight with his own kids, right? I don't know if you guys remember the story of Love Kush. When Love Kush were born, they got into, there was a fight between Ram and Love Kush because they did not know they were father and son, right? So if you look from beginning of Ram Bhagwan's story till the end, his life was full of disaster, right? There was nothing that we could say that, oh, I want to be like Ram Bhagwan, right? Because everything was disaster. But why we pray him as God is how graciously he handled all the disasters all his life. There was no crying, there was no frustration, there was no anger, nothing. He lived all his life with all this disaster without any pain that you can see on his face. He was always smiling, he always took care of everybody, and still he did it. So the first thing is, the most important thing, the gracefully, that how he lived his life with all this disaster. What do? One pain comes and we start crying, right? One grade goes low, we cry. One friend don't talk to us, we start crying. One thing doesn't happen according to our wish. Oh, I want to go and watch this game, or my parents, or I want to go with my friend and the parents couldn't take you, or something that happened not according to your wish. What do? We start crying, or we start feeling bad, or we get frustrated, or we start doing things, right? So that's what we are. But look at Ram Bhagwan. What happened to his life, right? Any moment that you can see and say, oh my God, he has happiness for so many days, right? One happiness came and then it washes away. Then he goes, but he never ever got angry or frustrated on any of the situation, right? Think about that. If your dad even says, go do this work or do that work, we get upset. And Ram Bhagwan's dad said, go to the forest and live in forest for 14 years. And you will not get any money or any kingdom, right? Still, he actually took that as a blessing and did it for his dad. So when he says that, when, Sunday also mentioned that he was a most noble guy, we say Ram as a Purushottam. Purushottam means the highest human being that can happen in this world was Ram. And why it is said? Because he did all his duty. He did not come with the avatar like Krishna Bhagavan. Krishna Bhagavan has a lot of miracles, right? In Krishna Bhagavan's story, we can see a lot of miracle. But in Ram's story, there is no miracle. There is a simple human being life all through his life. The only thing what we see in Ram Bhagavan, that how he performed his duty with the calmness, right? So if you look at it as a son, he did everything that was that the dharma, like dharma of son. We study in chapter 3 that you should be doing your swadharma, right? You remember that slok? In swadharma, we should be doing our own duty, right? So what is the duty of a son, right, for his parents? Now if you look at it, from outside in, what do you see? That Dashrath and Kaushalya and Kekai, right, all of them sent Ram to forest, right, and say that you go, and gave him the order to go. Kekai, who made that decision to let Ram go to the forest, what did Ram do to the Kekai, right? What he did, he actually took her blessing too when he was going to forest. There was no bad hurt feeling even with Kekai, though we all feel bad about Kekai, right? When we think about Kekai and we think that, oh, that was a bad lady who sent her son to forest. But for Ram Bhagavan, there was no bad feeling. He went with the order, right? So as a son, he did all his dharma, took care of his dharma and did it, right? As a husband, he took care of his wife, right? His wife was kidnapped. He actually walked all through 3,000 kilometers to find her, right? As a, if you think about Sita, how great a husband she could find, right? If the husband could have said, it's too far, I cannot find, I have to walk, I cannot find her anyway, and left it there. But no, he did everything to find her back and get her back. So if you look at it, he did everything well. As a brother, also he did take care of all his brothers, right? So if you look at Ram's story, you will see that he did everything that was required. As whatever role he played to the perfection, right? So in Ramayana, they gave 6 characteristics of Ram. That was very important to explain how Ram character is important in that. So the 6 characteristics, the first one, he was Gunvan. Gunvan means he had a full of character, noble person, right? He was noble with everybody. There was nothing that he would do anything wrong to anybody, right? In his heart, even though he killed Ravan, still he was sad about killing Ravan, right? So that character was amazing that he had. In all the situation, he stayed calm. So that's again the character of a Gunvan person. Then the second character, Veerwan. He was fearless. I did not tell about a lot of stories that he killed all the demons and stuff like that, but there's a lot of demons that he killed. So he was very much fearless in his character. Then he was Dharmagyani. Dharmagyani means your duties, your actions. So he did all the actions according to what is the human duty, right? Then Kritagna. Kritagna means grateful. Now there was a story when Hanuman, when they were making a bridge to go to Lanka. From India to Lanka, there is only water, right? There is only ocean. There is no road there was no road, no path to go there. And Raman went through took Sita sitting on a bird, a big bird, right? That was the story tell us. Probably there was an aeroplane that Raman had at that time. So there was no path to go from India to Lanka. So what was they doing? That Hanumanji was writing name Ram on stone, and when they throw that stone in the ocean, what happens? It doesn't sink. Yes, Sane. That's what you were saying? Yeah, it floats, right? So when you put a Ram name on the stone, it floats, it doesn't sink. And Hanuman was writing Ram on each stone and making the bridge, right? So when all the monkeys were doing that, all the other little creatures like a squirrel and everybody started doing the same thing, right? So Hanuman was making fun of squirrel one time and said, you know, squirrel, you are taking these small stones, that doesn't work for this big bridge. You need big stone. So he was making fun of it. So Ram Bhagwan says, no, even what you are doing, that's your 100%. What they are doing is their 100%. Don't make fun of them. So even like he has so much gratitude that even a little smaller thing is done to the largest thing done for him, he always praised them and felt gratitude with that, right? So he was Krishna band ho gaya. Okay. And then we got Gunwan, Veerwan, Dharmagyani, then we got Kritagnya, then Satya. He always told the truth, right? Then Drid. So even, you know, he always told the truth means he always followed the everything, and then it's Dridamvad means determined, right? So these were the 6 characters that were given in Ramayana for him. Now in many places it came, okay, in many places it came where like for his father, he could have said, no, I don't want to go. Even the Rishi the Vashishta Rishi came to him and said, you know what, there is a conspiracy, there is a wrong thing happening in the palace, Kekai is doing the wrong thing, you don't go, say no to your father that I don't want to go. But he says, no, I already promised that I will go to the forest, I will go. So he had many chances where he could, if he would have said no, nothing would have gone wrong. Like, you know, he could have stayed, but he did not. He promised, he kept the promise, right? So, and then that's how it worked for him. And so if you look at Ram's life, and, you know, we talk about 2 gods, Ram and Krishna. So when you look at Krishna Bhagwan's life, you will say that, you know, can you live Krishna Bhagwan's life? You cannot live Krishna Bhagwan's life because it's a little bit not, you know, he has a lot of miracles that he did, a lot of things that he did which we couldn't do it. But Ram Bhagwan's life is an example how we should follow our life, right? So Ram Bhagwan is God that we follow as an example of all the actions. Krishna Bhagwan, we follow the words of Krishna Bhagwan, right? What he said in Gita, we follow that. But example for the action is Ram Bhagwan. If we look at the, you know, karma yoga that we studied, Ram Bhagwan is the best example of doing karma yoga, right? Whatever duty he had, he did it perfectly, right? So that's why Ram Bhagwan is like, you know, is worship, is because of what he did with his life. Even though with all these disasters in life, he stayed calm and collective, and he lived his life with, you know, with gratitude and with praise about everybody, right? So that's Ram Bhagwan's story. Now let's talk a little bit about Hanuman. Who is Hanuman? Can anybody explain me? Anybody know who is Hanuman? Yes, Anna.
He's like a huge, he's first of all like a monkey or something. Yeah, he's a monkey, and he's a big devotee of Ram.
True. So he is a big devotee of Ram, right? And Hanuman is, I would say that he is the biggest example of a devotee, how the devotee should be, right? If you go to a temple and you see Ram's temple, right? Ram Bhagwan's temple, you will never not see Hanuman in that temple. He will be always with Ram Bhagwan, right? So you see Ram, Lakshman and Sita in the temple, and right down there you will see Hanumanji sitting, right? He never leaves Ram Bhagwan. One time there was a debate that happened between Ram Bhagwan and Hanuman. Hanuman said, give me a place that I can stay with you all my life. So give me the place where should I stay with you? Like, should I stay with you on your foot? Ram Bhagwan says, no, don't stay in my foot, because there are a lot of people that comes and touch the foot. I don't want you to stay there. So he said, okay, so where do I stay? Can I stay in your heart? Ram Bhagwan says, no, my heart, already Sita stays in that heart, so you cannot stay there. So Hanuman was like very sad. He said, why you are not giving me any place to stay in your, very close to you? And then Ram Bhagwan said at the end of the day, he said, you know what? I don't have a place for you to stay, but you have a place for me to stay. And Hanuman couldn't understand, and he went home and he kept thinking about it, that what does that mean? I have a place. I don't have a place, but you have a place. Where can I have Ram Bhagwan? And then in the morning he realized that he can keep Ram Bhagwan in his heart all the time. He doesn't have to stay with the Ram Bhagwan, but Ram Bhagwan will stay with him. So if you see a lot of pictures of Hanuman, he is like taking his chest off and seeing a picture of Ram and Sita in his heart, right? That's predict that his devotion is always there. One time Sita was giving Diwali gift to everybody kind of thing. So Hanumanji was sitting there too, and Sita gave a gift to Hanuman also, a whole garland with the pearls. She gave it to him and said, okay. So he took the pearl necklace and he started breaking the pearl and throwing it away. So the person, Lakshman, got very upset. Lakshman said, Sita Maya gave you this necklace and you are actually disrespecting her by breaking the pearl and throwing it away. So he said that if the pearl, inside the pearl there is no Ram, what is it used for me? I cannot take it, and like this pearl is no use for me because there is no picture of Ram in it. So he was so devotee that everything what he sees or keep he see Ram in that. That's the only thing he used to keep with him, right? So one time Ram Bhagwan says, what are you for me, right? Explain that. So Hanuman explains that if you think about I am a body and you are the body, then you are the master and I am the servant. If you think about me as if you are the sentient being, Jiva, then you are the whole and I am the part, right? I am a part of you. And if you think about me as a consciousness, then you are me are the same, right? This is a big thing in Hindu philosophy. If you understand that, there are 3 philosophies in Hindu. One is that you are the God and I am a human in the transaction life, right? When we think about us as a body, mind, intellect complex, then what happens is God is somebody and we are a human, and we are, God is the king and we are the servant, right? That's how we think about it, that God is the master and we are the servant of God. When we think about this, the second philosophy is, the name of the philosophy is Vishishta Advait. In that philosophy, what they think is God is complete and we are part of it. Like God is one consciousness, and then out of that little consciousness is spread to all human beings, and that's how we are. Like God is full and we are a small consciousness. The third philosophy is that all are consciousness. Everybody is the same consciousness. God is the same consciousness, and everybody has the same consciousness. That's the third philosophy. So for Hanuman, don't want to pick what he is. He explained all three philosophy. If you put me in the philosophy of where God is master and I am servant, I am there. If you put me in the philosophy of Vishishta Advaita, that God is full, so Ram is full and I am part of you, right? And if you put me in the Advait philosophy, which is non-duality philosophy, then all is you and me are the same. So in any case, I am surrendered to you, right? So that's how Hanuman's bhakti is. Now, when we talk about, like I told you, like, in Hindu religion, there are so many gods, right? But they were made for specific things that we can ask. Like I told you about Lakshmi ji, where we can go and ask for money. Then we talk about Saraswati, where we can go and ask for buddhi. Ganesh is also that gives buddhi. Now for Hanuman, what do you ask from Hanuman? Hanuman, we make him as a god because he is a bhakt of God, right? What do we ask from Hanuman? Think about it. What can we ask from Hanuman? What is Hanuman known for?
Like, what's he known for?
What can we go and ask Hanuman? If Hanuman is a god and I want you to go and ask God, give me. Like for Lakshmi, we ask money, right? From Lakshmi. From Saraswati, we ask Vidya, study. For Hanumanji, what can we ask? What did Hanumanji do that is so...
We can ask how to be a devotee.
How to be a devotee, right? That's what you ask from Hanuman. So Hanuman prayer is done to become a devotee. So God, how you are devotee to Ram, I want to be devotee to God. That's what you ask for Hanuman when you pray to Hanuman. So that's how, so Hanuman Jayanti, Hanuman is nothing without Ram, right? And Ram is nothing without Hanuman. That's the relationship between Bhakt and Lord and Bhakt, right? Devotee and the Lord and devotee, that close relationship. So when we do devotional service, we want to be like Hanuman. If you see Hanuman always sit with one foot up and one foot down, right in front of Ram Bhagwan. Why? Because as soon as God wants, he doesn't want to sit like sit like this and it will take me time to get up and do the work. He sits in the on mark, get set, go, run kind of position. So as soon as Ram Bhagwan needs anything, he's there to get up and give it to him. That's how fast service you want to do for God, right? So that's how Hanuman is. So what we pray to God is, God, make us as Hanuman so we can give that much devotion as Hanuman gave it to Ram, right? So the Hanuman Jayanti was there too. So what we do is we pray to Hanuman on that day and ask him devotion, right? So that's how that was it. And anything I missed? There is a lot more to speak about Ram, Hanuman and all that Brahman story, but I wanted to condense it in 1 hour and tell you the whole story, right? So now the lesson is to live the life with anything, any distress come, live the life without frustration, without getting, drift away with the distraction or with the all the things that come and is a disaster come, we don't get drifted with that. We just keep moving with calmness. That's what we need to learn from Ram Bhagwan's story, and from Hanuman's story we learn devotion, right? Okay, so next time when you celebrate Ram Navmi and you celebrate the Hanuman Jayanti, remember the story and then prayer to Ram and prayer to Hanuman on those days, right? Okay, let's close it. Vasudeva Sutam Devam Kaushachanurmardhanam Devaki Paramanandam Krishnam Vande Jagadguru Gurur Brahma Gurur Vishnu Gurur Devo Maheshwara Guru Sakshat Parabrahma Tasmai Shri Guruve Namah. Om Krishna Arpanamastu. Okay, thank you guys for being there. Next week, let's have we will go back to chapter 3. Okay, guys? Okay, bye.